good morning, and Merry Christmas to those of you who are celebrating Christmas. Those of you that are not, I hope you're having a great day. Anyway, whatever you celebrate the shit out of it. Real quick, we're a little bit early, so I'll just share some stuff going on. This is what I typically do on the Wolf Den channel. I go live 2 or 3 times a week, but I want to share. Let me see if I can hide any private information here. I posted an announcement today in the Wolf Den, and that's the crypto community, because a lot of people say, hey, over the last couple of days, hey, what the hell do we get something for somebody like you for Christmas? And I posted my response in look at Spartan's token. Already got a YouTube channel. I posted my response in the Wolf Den. And I'm gonna share a little bit. We have this joke, which I had in my first company 10 years ago. How old am I? Almost 11 years ago. It'll be 11 years. I opened my first company on my birthday. It'll be 11 years in 3 days. And always had this doing it wrong. I've been told I've been doing it wrong since the beginning of time. And it's great because people say you're doing it wrong, and then they watch and they wait to say "told you so," and the time never comes. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. So in the crypto world, we've been told we're doing it wrong from day one. And the reason people are saying it's wrong is because they have this weird perspective about humans. Like, they want to see the best, but they expect the worst. And in crypto specifically, it said is doing it wrong because when I say, hey, this, I'm going to do it, they say, no, people are too greedy. People are too impulsive. They'll never actually do that. People are impatient. That strategy won't work because people are impatient and they're not smart. No, you got to hype everything. Everything has to have hype because people can't slow down. You can't have people use proper communication channels. You can't expect that out of people. And going back to Nicsmas principles, right? Starting with the fundamentals and reasoning backwards, I said I believe we can, because if I do it right, the way that what you guys are calling right, well, if I do it right, then and if the right way is the only way to do it, then there is no hope for anything extraordinary. Because what everybody says is right is average. This is what average, on average is what people do. This is what everybody else does. So we're not always aware of what we're saying. But when we're saying, well, I'm afraid people won't like it this way, so I have to do it the way that everybody else does it, you are squashing the hope of something extraordinary. Okay? And let me show you what you guys, if you're in my crypto world or business world, you've already given me everything I could ask for Christmas or otherwise. Because for the last 6 months, we've seen this will never work because there's something wrong with people. You have to do it this way. The extraordinary cannot exist. That's what they're saying without knowing they're saying it. This is the very first thing I did in crypto. And it was only 6 months ago. I am not a crypto expert. Okay. It went 340x. 340x. Between every $1 you put in, it's worth 340 now. Must have been luck, right? So we did it again. And when I did it again, everybody said that'll never work. It'll never work because people are impatient, because people are impulsive. You can't teach them. They won't listen. And I refuse to believe that humans cannot do something extraordinary. Most of them are going to be human. We only need a very small amount. The people watching Nicsmas, right? We only need a small amount to do something extraordinary. So I said, okay, you want to call this one luck? We'll do it again. This is Guardian. This is while the whole market was down. We just kept rolling. So proof in spades. Now, we did it again, right? And I want to talk a little bit about this personality and how it all ties into Nicsmas. Said, okay, maybe we got lucky again. So whole new undertaking. Now, Wolf Pups is very simple. This was stretching my ability at the time. Guardian has layers of complexity that were a little bit outside of my reach. A little bit outside of my reach. the urge, once people said, wow, look at this, you did good, you're smart, you're good at crypto, the urge, and I'm going to talk about this in depth today, and I hope it's useful to you piggybacking off of yesterday, is to no longer challenge yourself, because I am now seen as successful. Wolfies is successful. What most people will do at this point is they will try to do it again and again and again and again the same way, because they know it. It's safe. They can maintain their identity as being successful. Very, very dangerous. I'll talk about that in a moment. So we did something different. This was much higher risk. For now that we have the identity of being successful, doing something outside of our current competence puts us at risk. We could lose that identity. We could fail. Everybody's watching now. The fuck does that have to do with anything? Okay. So we did it again, and then we stretched again. Probably the single most important part of crypto is an exchange. If there's no exchange, there's no crypto. So said, okay, cool, let's tackle an exchange. And you see right here, this has 52 million in TVL. This is 19 million TVL. And last week, actually by quite a bit, almost double the growth, fastest growing exchange, decentralized exchange across all networks. Okay. And this isn't to brag or anything, because this was all unknown. I did not in a million years say, hey, I know how to do this, therefore I'm going to do it. It was like, let's see if we can do this. And so far it's gone well, because we reason from just the fundamentals, concepts, principles, etc., etc. What does that have to do with Nicsmas? Let me explain. Okay, because we're going to talk about the flippening. We're going to talk about the flippening. This is where people get out of their zone. This is where people get out of their zone because asymmetry has flipped. I'll explain that in a minute. So hopefully we've been doing our 6-word updates. We've been communicating with people. We've been learning about ourselves. We've been learning about some of the things that make us us. And see here, Nicsmas to 8. Holy feck. Actual tears. Yeah. Every single Christmas. Or Nicsmas. Sorry. Every single Nicsmas this is happening. A lot of people like to hide behind, 75 hard. I'm hardcore because I'm going to exercise twice a day and yada, yada, yada. And that's not really hardcore. You won't even sit down and do the things. You won't even look at the mirror. So I always enjoy Nicsmas when I get feedback like this, because this means people are sitting down doing the hard work. They're not doing things that are easy for them that might be perceived as hard to other people and considering it hard work. It's not hard work if it's easy for you. Sometimes sitting down and being honest with yourself is the hard work. And you're going to find there's always limits, and people are either too scared or too reckless. It's supposed to be another O there. Oh, so many typos. Too scared or too reckless to find them. Okay? Playing it safe is limitation. Taking yourself out of the game. So we've talked a lot about risk over Nicsmas. That's a huge limit. The other limit is playing it too safe, which is what we're going to tackle after yesterday's Nicsmas. Okay, so get in your 6-word update. I'll give you a minute. These are day 8s. See if we have any day 9s coming in. These are all day 9s. Chilling home for Christmas. Always get some good 6-word updates. And I encourage you to continue to do this. Keep fighting for the right words. The process of fighting for those words is incredibly valuable. Helps if I'm on the right Twitter account. Okay, so fight for these words. My fam is what matters most. Getting this down to 6. Big flex. Xmas, Nicsmas attendance strong. Yeah, and I got a nice little attendance here. Take your foot off the brake. It's maybe counterintuitive because we've been taught to stretch our brains to get a minimum of 10,000 words, right? Hitting a word count. At this point in your adult life, it is probably far more difficult to get down to 6 words that are meaningful. And it is worth, in my opinion, it is worth fighting for every one of those words every single day. Just my opinion. Take it or leave it. All right? So 6-word updates. Quote of the day. I got 2 again. Hey, there are 2 tyrants of leadership I'm going to talk about those. It's from Randy Massengale. This is like a whole entire week in the CCA is really picking these things apart. But there are 2 tyrants of leadership. And as soon as you believe your own press clippings, it's over. You're dead. Dr. Jeff Spencer, greatest performance coach of all time. I don't think there's much of an argument about his credentials here. So as soon as you believe your own press clippings, it's over. You're dead. And there are 2 tyrants of leadership. And remember, since day 1 of Nicsmas, we need to keep top of mind that curiosity is really the superpower. Curiosity is key. How do we find our limits? How do we actually find the limits? And the answer is curiosity. If we are driven by greed, ego, anything like that, we are going to take on too much risk, do something stupid. And if we are not curious, we will play it too safe. Fear you cannot be in a full state of fear and also a full state of curiosity. So what curiosity is doing is replacing fear. It's allowing you to move forward even though you are uncertain, just to see what happens. And the reason we want to move forward just to see what happens is because we don't want to move forward for the sake of moving forward. Even though you're scared, move forward anyway is not super useful because it's missing the most important component of the equation, which is being receptivity to new information. Curiosity keeps us in a place of receptivity. So it's really important that we don't, I'm going to move forward to prove I'm not scared. That's not useful. That's risk. That's stupid. That's like, I can't see in front of me, so I am just going to move forward blindly. Whereas curiosity is like, maybe I can feel around, see what's going on. Maybe there's like a flashlight somewhere. I can really see what's going on. Right? So we just want to remember to stay in a place of curiosity. Now, you guys remember this from yesterday, hopefully. I got a great question about in yesterday's VIP session, which addressed this. People are having a hard time staying in high challenge, high skill. They know they thrive here. Most of you probably thrive here. High challenge, high skill. Launching a new cryptocurrency when you don't really know much about crypto. That's a very high challenge and it requires a lot of skill. Okay? The risk here, and we'll see this all the time. We'll look back and be like, how did I end up in a different quadrant? And more often than not, the reason is identity. Identity. You probably spend time here. I'm gonna really try really hard at writing a good, maybe music. Maybe you just love playing music. It's high skill, it's high challenge. Building technology, running your business, writing poetry, whatever it is. The risk then is that people come along and say, wow, you're really good at this. Biggest risk is when people give you an identity as being good at something. Because we're not always aware of it. Subconsciously, we want to hold on to that identity. We want to be good. Everybody thinks I'm good. Everybody's watching. Therefore, I must stop challenging myself because I risk failing in front of everybody, losing my identity. And you will go into low challenge and or low skill tasks so you can continue to appear good at a thing. I mean, you can continue to be good at a thing, but you stop stretching yourself. You stop stretching yourself because the values and the asymmetry will change. Meaning when you have nothing to lose, who cares if you mess up? When you have an identity to lose, it's very, very difficult to not think about it. You could see, I pulled this up because I bake it into everything that I do. It's very, very important to me. You see right here. It's important to me that all of you know, and then I know I am not a guru. I am not an expert. I am a student always. Because the second I become an expert, the asymmetry has changed. I can no longer, as an expert or a guru, especially one that is in public, I can no longer play in this space because I risk my identity as an expert or a guru. So I have to adopt and remind myself constantly, I am a student. You, all of you watching, need to know Nick is not a guru, he is not an expert, he is a student, which means he is learning, which means we should expect mistakes. Because one of the tyrants is scrutiny, the other one is expectation. Those are the two tyrants of leadership, scrutiny and expectation. We have to be aware of them, we have to prepare for them, and we have to put ourselves in a position to not be an a-hole by being completely oblivious or ignorant to them. Okay, so scrutiny is people are going to tell you you are doing it wrong. They're going to provide friction. They're going to try to make you be average because doing it right, quote unquote right, means average. This is how everybody does it, therefore it's the right way to do it. If you give in to scrutiny, you cannot be extraordinary, you cannot do extraordinary things. That's just, you can come up with a counter argument, I'll listen to it, but if you want to do what everybody else is doing, you cannot also be extraordinary. To do something extraordinary, it's going to be considered wrong. It's going to be considered not ordinary, right? So the first one is scrutiny. The second tyrant is expectation. When you succeed anyway, people will expect things from you. Oh, hey, that was successful. A lot of people in this community that are watching right now went from middle class or lower middle class job to multi-millionaire almost overnight. And I just happen to know that personally about some of you. And some of the things that are like, oh, you thought millions of dollars, now I'm good, and you're realizing, wow, now everybody just expects me to give them money. Everybody expects me to show them how to do it. Right? And I made that jump by taking a risk. Now all eyeballs are on me. Now I'm afraid to take another risk. I have more. Before, I had more to gain than I had to lose. Now I have more to lose than I have to gain, especially if the thing we're clinging on to is identity as a winner. Winners, perennial winners, do not actually identify as winners, believe it or not. We peg them as winners. They are process-oriented. You ever watch like a Seahawks fan, so Bobby Wagner, who will be in the Hall of Fame, Russell Wilson, who will be in the Hall of Fame. They always say, I love winning, but the trick is to fall in love with the boring, right? They consider themselves process-oriented students of the game. So the risk, which a lot of people are falling into, is they now have a success greater than what they expected or what other people expected. Now all eyeballs are on them. And if you did yesterday's exercise and you know about playing your game and you know you thrive here, the biggest risk to putting yourself into any other of the quadrants where you get anxiety, boredom, stress, all that stuff, is you are afraid to play here again, high skill, high challenge, because now your family considers you smart. Your peers, your contemporaries, what do we talk about getting judged by your peers? Pointless. You are not judged by your peers. It's very, very difficult though. So again, this came from a question yesterday. One of the reasons people have such a hard time staying in this quadrant, even if they know that's where they thrive, is they are terrified of losing their identity of being successful. Right? And the biggest risk is you believe your own press clippings. If anybody ever says, oh, Nick is so good at crypto, he knows blockchain better than anybody, I cannot believe that. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's not true, by the way. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. The worst thing I can do is believe that I am no longer a student because I'm a guru or an expert, because I will not be able to maintain that belief and play in a high skill, high challenge quadrant, which is where you're the most likely to make mistakes. It's high challenge and it's developing a new skill. Of course, you're going to make mistakes. So being good, being an expert, being a guru, if that's the identity that you assume, knowing that you thrive in this quadrant, you are being an a-hole to yourself and everybody else. that make sense? You let me know in the comments. So we have to be aware. Let's go through this in sequence. There's 2 tyrants of leadership. We have to be aware of them. You are going to get scrutinized if you try to do anything out of the ordinary. Extraordinary is out of the ordinary, right? Scrutiny and expectation. Expectation has 2 things. Scrutiny is people going, nope, 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 you can't go up there, come down here. They're going to try to pull you down. Crabs in the bucket, right? Expectation is when you make it anyway, and then they say, hey, pull me up with you. I don't want to do the work. I didn't want to wake up early, and I don't want to learn all that stuff, and I didn't want to ask good questions and use proper communication channels, but I'm glad you did. Can you pull me up now? That's one. And the other expectation is now people are watching. And you have to be very careful that you do not try to maintain the identity of being good. The identity is, in my opinion, of a student getting better. We must maintain this as much as possible. Otherwise, we are going to believe our own press clippings. It's in the newspaper. They said I'm good. All these people hold me way up here in high regard. I better not mess up. And if you believe you better not mess up, you are marrying yourself to these quadrants. You do not do anything extraordinary in these quadrants. You just maintain the identity of being good. And you will probably have high anxiety, high stress, be an a-hole, be unhappy, and blame everybody else. Right? What if we get bored with high skill, high challenge? If it takes longer than a certain amount of time, like a project takes more than 1 month, then it's not really high skill, high challenge. Or you're just not interested in it. That's the reality. It may be high skill, low challenge. Maybe high skill, low challenge. But that's the and I have a any of my partners, anybody that's spent a lot of time with me over the years knows I have a thing in my brain. It just clicks. It's high skill, high challenge, and then one day it's high skill, low challenge. I just stopped doing it. But it's moved quadrants. I just want to figure stuff out. It's so when you say if you get bored with the high skill, high challenge, it takes longer than a certain amount of time, the fact that you're saying it takes longer means you had a preconceived outcome you were trying to achieve, which is that's not a prerequisite. You can do high skill, high challenge without having you can just try to figure it out. I have no idea. That's what I do, right? So if it took longer than a certain amount of time, then what took longer? What outcome, right? So you've attached an outcome to it, which is not, we haven't said anything about an outcome. So it's very likely that it's no longer high challenge. So you just move it over. Maybe you didn't get the arbitrary goal in some arbitrary timeline that you thought was going to happen, but that has nothing to do with the quadrant, right? So we got to be very, very careful. People say it all the time, and that is it's a good question. Is, well, what if I don't get there? Like, what's there? Why? That's the opposite of what we're talking about, right? This whole time is like, that's an outcome orientation. So a lot of things will be high skill, high challenge, and I dealt with this a lot too. Like, I'm going to do this until I get to this point because I love it. Like, I'm going to do this till I make $10 million because I love doing this. It took me a long time to realize that $10 million has nothing to do with this quadrant. I do things as long as they're high skill, high challenge. And then sometimes, I'm just stream of consciousness here. I hope it's helpful for you guys. Sometimes this creates an obligation, and I will fulfill that obligation, right? I got to figure this out. So I partner with somebody and, we decide to build something, and then all of a sudden it's no longer high skill, high challenge. I will still fulfill the obligation. So there's a getting to know yourself. I'll say this because I didn't touch on this, and I think it's important. This is, again, my opinion. There's knowing yourself. There's the investor frame. There's all these things where you realize, wow, I need to get rid of a lot of this stuff in my life. And then there's the communication where you got to talk to people and say, hey, this isn't working for me. There's still an obligation that you may have to fulfill. I absolutely do things day to day, very, very few now, less and less, where it doesn't fit my quadrant, it doesn't fit my playing style, it doesn't fit my personality. I didn't got into things earlier that have changed or whatever. I still believe you have to fulfill your obligations to other people. But you do have to have a conversation and, come up with a plan and all that stuff. So that's the trick. The trick is not everything you do needs to have an outcome. There's the things that matter. I want to be here. I'm here and I want to be here. And then there's all these things that you're going to do to close the gap. All those things don't need to have individual outcomes. All they have to do when you zoom out is be closing the gap. So I'll do high skill, high challenge. I'll figure it out. And then, I'll move on to the next thing. The trick is, again, you cannot believe your own press clippings. I cannot believe the things people say about me. They're ridiculous. Positive or negative, right? But if somebody goes, you're a genius, everything you touch turns to gold, I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that, because if I adopt that as a belief of mine, I will start avoiding anything that I am not 100% certain I can turn into gold, right? Which means I'm going to avoid all high skill, high challenge things. This is where, let me give you an example. Let me tell you where you can see this in real life. And I'll try to use a really common one. You ever know somebody that does marathons or local races, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that one because so-and-so's competing, and, I'm not going to do something unless I know I can win. I'm really competitive like that. Motherfucker, excuse my language, but motherfucker, you're not competitive. You're petty. You are hand-picking things you know you can win at. That is not competitive. That is petty. So if you find yourself, or you recognize others, only picking things they know they can win so they can collect trophies for their wall to make them feel good, so all their friends come over and keep saying, wow, you won again, you're so good, you are not challenging yourself. A competitor goes, which is the race that's going to be the hardest to win, and how well can I do in that one? So that's how you catch it in yourself. When you go, yeah, I don't want to compete in that, or I don't want to do that because that one's really hard. There's no way I'm going to win that. Let's see. Let's find one that I can win at, so I can maintain my identity to my friends as being a gold medalist. That's not competitive. It's petty. It's petty. You're an a-hole, and you are preventing yourself from growing. No amount of medals on the wall is going to make you happy. Right? So that's what it looks like in real life. You pick things you know you can win. You only do things you know you would do well, so that people will continue to just feed your ego that you succeeded. I talked about this yesterday, I want to find the limits. I really do. I can't be reckless, but I want to find the limits. And in order for me to find the limits, I can't just say it. I have to continue to adopt and remind myself I'm a student. I can never, ever, ever adopt the identity of, this is my personal opinion. You can make whatever you want of it, and you can do your own work. I never, ever want to consider myself good at something. And if there's a certain type of person, probably not the people here on Nicsmas, there's a certain type of person that go, well, why are you so self-depreciating? I'm not. I have outrageously, it's unreasonable the amount of confidence I have that I can figure things out. It's not reasonable in the confidence I have I'll figure things out. That doesn't make me good at stuff. It means I can get better at stuff. I have a rational belief in my ability to get better at stuff. That's very different than being self-depreciating or believing I'm good at stuff, in my opinion. So this is the risk we run. And this came up, there's a couple questions yesterday where I see that people that have 2 Comma Club awards or are considered successful, they're having a hard time getting back into the place where they are happiest and best, because they don't realize that they're clinging to the identity of being good. I don't know why anybody would want to be an expert in anything. If you really dive deep into history. It is not the experts that innovate. It is almost always somebody from outside of a field, because when you become an expert, so I don't know how bad my bedhead is today, but it's okay. When you become an expert, necessarily you have to adopt blinders. It's called a paradigm. You have to adopt a paradigm because you can't go that deep into something and also consider everything. It's not possible. So when you adopt the identity as an expert, you are also kind of adopting these blinders. I don't want those blinders. Maybe you do. Experts are very, very useful. I cannot do anything without them. I need technical expertise or I'm useless. I got to go over and Dan is a very unique kind of expert where he does have this broad, expansive view. But we need experts. We do. That is not where I'm happiest. It might be where you're happiest. Okay? High skill, high challenge might be going really, really deep in your expertise. This is all about knowing yourself. The trick is you catch yourself when you don't do something because you might fail. Not doing something because you might fail is it's a sign that you're clinging on to an identity, and that's okay. As long as you're happy. If you're happy, I don't care. If you can look at yourself and say, I'm getting everything I want, I'm fulfilled, I'm happy, then whatever. Keep being happy. Right? So the values in the asymmetry, they do change at scale. The more press clippings that you have, the more likely you are going to cling on to an identity, the more you have to lose. So when nobody knows who you are, and you are intensely curious and trying to get out of wherever you're at, you're trying to make your life better, it benefits you to make mistakes. When you don't have an identity, when nobody's watching, it benefits you to make mistakes. It's very easy to flip that. It's called the flippening. You flip that when now there's enough press clippings, enough people watching, and enough of identity that making mistakes actually makes you feel like you have more to lose. That's not a good, in my opinion, that's not a good place to be. Of course, we don't make mistakes for the sake of making mistakes. We make mistakes out of curiosity. We make mistakes out of mastering a skill that is challenging to us. I also don't believe in like people that like go out there and say the mistakes are glorious, right? Like you have to go make mistakes. Like, no, you don't go out to make mistakes. You stay in a high skill, high challenge zone at a place of curiosity, and yeah, mistakes are probably going to happen. They don't have to happen. I hope mistakes don't happen, but you can't be afraid of them. Right. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully we can kind of identify where we're at here. Again, I'm just sharing something that came up yesterday, is we will cling to identities. I'll give you a few more examples just to real world. I know quite a few people that sabotage themselves in fitness. Most common, and this is just in my experience, I'm sure it's across the board, most common is like you get these, and this is an archetype, right? Type A, 40 to 50-year-old woman, hyper successful in everything they do, used to be a lawyer, had 3 kids, now is world-class mom, kids are valedictorians, well-adjusted, trophy husband, whatever. And for some reason they can't figure out this fitness thing, right? And if you watch their behavior, you realize, and I've had conversations with hundreds of these women, they actually don't want to solve the problem because their battle with this problem has become their identity. It's like their chew toy, and they don't actually know what they would do if you took the chew toy away. So you can imagine the stress and anxiety and the kind of doom loop you create when your whole life starts becoming about getting rid of a thing that you need to maintain in order to continue living the life that you live and the identity that you have. We do this all of the time. It happens. This is just one example. It's the one that I've seen the most. We are avoiding the thing that we keep saying we want to solve, because if we solve that thing, we can no longer identify as the person that is struggling to solve that thing. You're kind of being an a-hole if you negatively impact other people while you're doing that to yourself. right? So 9:34, cool. That's half hour. We'll go VIP, have a conversation with you guys. I hope, again, I'm lightening up a little bit because yesterday's Christmas Eve, today's Christmas. Just understand that as you communicate with people, like we talked about yesterday, and as you go through this, there's the two. There's going to be scrutiny and there's going to be expectation. And I would say that as soon as you believe your own press clippings, it's over. You're dead. A lot of people on Nicsmas that I know right now are pretty much dead. A lot of people feel stuck because they believe their own press clippings from, I don't know, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. You've been considered successful by your peers for long enough that you won't go back into the zone where you are the happiest and the most effective, the most energized, and the most likely to close the gap between where you're at and where you want to be now, because you are worried about the scrutiny. You're worried about the expectation. You're worried you might lose your identity, and I strongly recommend you consider what kind of identity you need in order to implement all of the things that we talked about over the last few days. I don't know what that frame is, but I promise you, I am almost 100% certain that if your identity is expert or guru or good at a thing, you're done. You may be very, very happy where you're at. And I do not believe that if you are happy where you're at, you need to change where you're at. But if you are not 100% satisfied about your energy levels, about your focus, about your drive, about your ability to close the gap, about your ability to have conversations with people, then being an expert, being a guru, being good at something, carrying around that identity, I am good or great. Let other people label you that way. Other people can tell me I'm good or great. Fine. They can tell other people I'm good or great. In fact, I hope you all go tell everybody I'm a genius. That's wonderful. Don't tell me that. I cannot believe that. Right? Let other people identify you however they want, but be very, very, very intentional about the identity that you assume so that you can continue. If nothing else, these are all options. And how do we engineer luck? We domesticate risk and we increase optionality. The second you decide you're good at something, you've removed 25% of the activities you can engage in and maintain that identity. Hopefully that's helpful. We'll jump on. We'll just do a couple minutes. We'll do 20, 30 minutes for VIPs. Obviously, I'm here. We can go longer if we want. It'll be the same Zoom link. I will post it one more time. I'll fire that up in about 2 minutes. Just going to close down all the software and stuff. Appreciate y'all. Have a great Christmas. We're going to pick it back up tomorrow. Do not miss Nicsmas Day. Probably going to start at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. We have some really killer guests. Some of my friends are coming. They're going to share some really cool stuff. You're going to have inside baseball and the first look at many things that a bunch of people are going to FOMO about when they find out. So Nicsmas Day, we're going to do from 8:30 on, and there's going to be 2 sessions, an AM session for everybody and a PM session for just the VIPs and the CCA enrollees. And we'll see you then.